Guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about three things. We talked about sample space, and we said this could be of two types. One is discrete sample space. Another one is continuous sample space. And what do you mean by discrete? We said sample space has to be countably infinite or just countable, meaning just finite. So finite or countable infinite, altogether we can say it is countable. And continuous means the number of points in the sample space is uncountable. Then we said the corresponding sample space is discrete or continuous. And then we talked about set of all possible events, and we said that it has a structure which is closed under complement and union. Union is like union of countably infinitely many events is again an event. And this set is of course non-empty because the entire sample space is always an event. So we talked about the entire structure is called the sigma field. Or some people will also say it's sigma algebra. And then we introduced what is called the probability. And we said probability is a function. So probability is a function from the sigma field corresponding to a random experiment to the closed interval 0, 1. So whenever we have a random experiment, so experiment, then we always can talk about sample space, sigma field, and we can talk about a probability function, or sometimes it is called, so it's called probability function, or sometimes it's called a probability measure. And in the entire course, from now onwards, whatever we discuss, whatever problem, whatever concept we discuss, there will always be an underlying concept of sample space, sigma field, and probability function. And altogether, this is called a probability space. So this is S, which denotes the sample space. Then there is a sigma field, which is denoted by F, and there is a P. So this three tuple is known as the probability space. So whenever we talk about some concept, some problem, whatever it is, there is an underlying probability space, meaning there is a well-defined notion of sample space, sigma field, and a probability measure. So after introducing the concept of probability as a function, we started talking about some properties of this function. So yeah, so today we'll start with that. So there are three properties, right, for a probability function, a probability measure. So probability function, there are three properties. First one is it is non-negative. In fact, it is lying between 0 to 1. It is lying between 0 to 1. But this condition, we just introduced this, like we said, PA is bigger or equal to 0. So this is called the non-negativity condition. And then we said, OK, the probability of the sample space is 1. And then we said probability of union of disjoint events, even if the collection is countable infinite, it is just sum of the probabilities of the individual events. j equal to 1 to infinity. So this condition is called the additivity property. Additivity. And here you must not forget that this collection AJ, this is a disjoint collection. A disjoint. So you can say j equal to 1 to infinity, the disjoint collection of events.
Sir, why in the first property we don't write that PA is less than equal to 1?
Yeah, that can also be proved using these two properties. That can also be proved because of this condition. So because A is okay, we'll see how this can be proved. Okay, we'll see how. I mean, that will be an extra condition. You can of course write the first property as it is like bigger equal to 0 and less equal to 1. But I'm not adding that second part like it is less equal to 1, because that can be proved using these two conditions, 2 and 3. Because I said what happens in mathematics is when you introduce a definition, you always include minimal set of conditions, so that the other whatever the properties are, they can be proved using those three conditions itself. Or here in this case, these three conditions itself. So that's why you want to use you want to include all the minimal number of conditions, and these are those conditions. Yeah, we can prove that probability of any event is less equal to 1 due to the second property. Yeah, so first property today we'll discuss, which you obviously must know, but let me just so let us say this is again one more new property of this probability. One more property. It's like if we talked about disjoint union, but even if you take a finite collection, then also this is obviously true. So if you take any finite collection like A1, A2, An, finite to many events, okay, if this is a collection or a set of events which are mutually disjoint, so such that let's say AI intersection AJ is equal to empty set when I not equal to J, meaning if you take any pair, they are disjoint, then probability of union of all this J equal to so 1 to n, is just the sum of all this. This can be easily proved, but I'll skip the proof. Easily proved means what you can do? You can take this finite collection, and then you can create an infinite collection by taking null set or the empty set as the members of that collection. And then you can use the third property. And then since the probability of empty set is 0, so this can be easily proved. So this proof is homework. So this is a very simple property. So even if you take a finite collection of disjoint events, so this holds. And so sometimes also, so when two events are mutually disjoint, then some people will also say that they are mutually exclusive. Okay, so let me just make a remark here. So for mutually exclusive events, or let's say if probability of A1 union A2 is equal to P of A1 plus P of A2, so it's such the sum of the probabilities, then when just let me like this equal to this, when A1 A2 are mutually exclusive. Some people will use this word, so that's why I just want to mention are mutually exclusive, or you can just say disjoint events.
Sir, can you please repeat the proof once of the previous property?
So I want to prove. Yeah. I want to use this third condition, okay, to prove this property. So third condition talks about infinite collection, union of infinitely many events, and here it talks about finite number of events. So I can create a collection of infinitely many events. How? I can take this finitely many, and then for the rest, n plus 1th event is null set, n plus 2 is null set, and dot, dot, dot. All these are null set, goes to infinity. So this becomes an infinite collection, which are mutually exclusive. The events are mutually exclusive. So any pair of events is disjoint. So intersection is null set. Then we can apply the property 3. Then again, it will be the probability of this union, which is again union of this j equal to 1 to n. But in the right hand side, you will have sum of Paj, but probability of this null sets, these are all 0. So it will only contributed by this P of probability of the edges. So it can easily be proved. Okay, and next property is if you have, so if the sample space is discrete, then for any event, let's say A, okay, probability of A is equal to the sum of the probabilities of elementary events, I'll call. Okay, what is elementary event? Okay, I'll talk about that. Elementary events. Okay, what is an elementary event? Elementary event means the event is just a singleton set. So it is just a possible outcome. But since we are defining probability for a set, for an event is a set, but any possible outcome is not a set. So suppose head and tail, okay? We cannot say probability of H. This is a wrong notation. We have to say probability of H, because probability is a function from set of events. So it has to be an event, and event is a subset. So subset of the sample space. So event is a set. So this notation is wrong. This is correct. Okay, and these events are called elementary events. That means an event which contains only a possible outcome. So it is a singleton set. That means the set contains only one element.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir. In the third property, sir, where the sum of the total events are not 1, sir? Because this is the disjoint, sir. So the probability should be 1, sir, sum of the all events.
Yeah, but sum of this will be 1. This will be 1 only if this entire sum, this entire union has to be S.
Yes,
or,
sir.
or for other case, maybe, because there can exist events which need not be sample space, but its probability is 1. That can also occur, that can also happen, but it is not necessary. So it is just equal to this, but I do not know what is its value.
Okay, sir. Sir, one question more, sir.
Yeah, let me just give you an example. So let's say you take this kind of, you keep on doing this, and do it for infinitely many times. Okay, and keeping this as the rest. Okay, so then this is union. So let's say this is A1, then it is A2, it is A3, and so on. Keep on doing this, and then you will have. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, you said the P of A is equal to 1, but S is the sample space, sir. So
yes.
Head what? So P of A is equal to 1 or P of A equal to 1, sir? I have that question, sir.
Okay, so F is not an event.
Oh, sorry, sir. Sample space, sir. Sample space.
Yeah. So we cannot. Yeah. I've come to that. So P of F is not an event. So we cannot say what is the probability of F, but we can call what is the probability of S, because S itself is an event. Why? Because S itself is a subset of S. So S is a subset of S itself, and we always include that as an event. Why? Because whenever you do whenever you perform an experiment, there must be an outcome. This is our basic assumption. If there is no outcome, okay, we may not treat that as an event. So now we can say why I'm considering null set as an event. So null set, I'm considering it as an event in order to justify this structure, sigma field. Okay, because it has to be closed under the complement. But we always expect that whenever we perform an experiment, there has to be an outcome. Now, what is an outcome? Outcome must be an element of the sample space, because sample space contains all those possible outcomes. So that means whenever there is an outcome, the event S itself always occurs. So S, the entire sample space, can always be considered as an event. For example, if you toss a coin, the possible outcome is head and tail. So whenever you toss a coin, whatever occurs, doesn't matter head or tail, S, the event S always occurs, because the outcome, okay, is an element of the sample space, and sample space is a subset of itself. So it is always an event, and we are treating this S as an event. So the probability has to be equal to 1 because it always occurs. This event always occurs.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. 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 So good. So yeah. So why is that? So here, what we are saying now in this particular property. So just okay. Just a minute. Yeah. Get rid of this picture. Now, what does this property say? It says, okay, whenever you have this sample space, because the sample space is discrete, so whenever you have this such a sample space, so number of elements in the sample space is either finite or countable infinite. So if you take an event, so it has to be a subset of S. So this event A then contains either finitely many outcomes or countably infinitely many outcomes. So let us assume that A to be equal to this, like x1, x2. These are the possible outcomes. Or you can say A1, A2, A3, and so on. Then we can write this A to be equal to union of Aj, j equal to 1 to infinity. And this Aj is an elementary event because it contains only one singleton set. Now, what is the probability? Probability of A. Now we'll use the property 3, the additivity property of probability. So probability of A is nothing but sum of the probability of Aj. Why is that? Because all this collection of all the Ajs, they are disjoint because each outcome is different from each other. So then this will be j equal to 1 to infinity. So it is obvious. So then for a discrete sample space, probability of an event is nothing but the probability of the outcomes which are in that event, which is actually the notion which you have studied in 10+2 when A, the set A, the event is a finite set. It is exactly the same. Okay, so number of elements. So that's why when you say number of elements in that set divided by number of elements in the entire sample space, because the probability of this is nothing but the probability of this individual elementary events or individual outcomes. So this is one more property. So using this property, we can also say that probability of if all the possible outcomes are equally likely. So here just a remark again. Remark. If all the outcomes, let's say we are talking about finite sample space. If all the outcomes in a sample space are equally likely, that means probability of happening of any outcome is same, are equally likely in a finite sample space, then probability of an event A is nothing but number of elements in A, divided by number of elements in S. And this is what you have studied. So now what we did here is we show that it is a particular case of our general definition. So if all the probabilities, all the outcomes have same probability, they're all equally likely, then this will follow automatically according to a general definition of probability. Okay. So this is just a case of our general definition. Then one more property is that probability of complement of an event is 1 minus probability of the event. So suppose this is my entire sample space, then this is event A. And what is the complement of A? Complement of A is this part. This is A complement. And the proof is obvious. Why? Proof is obvious because S is equal to A union A complement. And these are disjoint. We already have proved that if you take probability of union of disjoint events, then it will be exactly equal to probability of sum of the events or sum of the probability of those events. So then if you take probability both sides, so you get this side, you'll get 1. This will be the sum of PA plus PAC, the complement of A, then you'll get this. Obvious. Now another property, interesting property.
So,
Yes?
in the above property,
Yeah.
so in the above property that you have said, that if the outcomes are equally likely, only then we are able to give this formula. What,
Yeah.
So if the outcomes are not equally likely, then what was the reason behind not giving this formula? If the outcomes are not equally likely.
Not equally likely, then it need not be the number of this. You can consider an example. You can consider an example. Let's say head and tail. Okay. So head and tail, this example. You can define probability of head to be 1 by 25 and probability of tail to be equal to 4 by 25. Sorry, 24 by 25. Right? So this is still a probability. But probability of T is not this. Right? It is not number of elements of this because number of element is 1. Here, it is not 1 by 25. It is 24 by 25. You can create such examples. But if it is equally likely that
above, that you have shown belong to this set, and you have the possible outcome. And so in there is a extent that example that suppose we B.
In fact, I cannot.
The outcomes to.
I cannot hear anything actually. There is a problem. There is a noise. So you can write your question, and when I get time, I'll get back to you. Okay? You can write the question in the chat box. I'll get back to you because I cannot hear anything. There is a lot of noise. Okay. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, you take the example that probability of H is 1 by 25 and T is 24. So this is not equally likely.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the main purpose is all should be not unbiased.
Yeah. When it is equally likely, then all it is true. That's what I said. When it is not equally likely, then it need not be same. In fact, it will not be same.
So, sir, we cannot generalize it.
No. It is not a generalization. You cannot say this. One equally, this is a property. We are not generalizing. See, the thing is, what I'm saying is we have a definition of probability. Now we are saying this definition which you introduce is so general that the definition that will follow as a special case for a particular probability distribution. But now here I cannot say distribution because I did not discuss it, but probability distribution meaning when you define probability for all the individual events, let's say, suppose you have a finite sample space and you define probability of all the individual outcomes. Okay. And then I can call that as a probability distribution. If that is the definition of probability distribution. So that means you know all the probabilities of the outcomes, possible outcomes, which are in the sample space. And if all these are equal, so they are all equally likely, all possible outcomes, then this will follow from the definition itself, from our definition itself. Because it is, see, from this definition, it is follow. Our definition, using our definition, we prove this one. Now from this one, it follows. Because what is that probability of individual event? Now what is the individual event? If they are equally likely, this has to be equal to 1 by the number of elements in S. Then only it is equal. This is the case, only when it will be equal. So this is number of elements, number of sample points here. Then probability of, so let's say you are rolling a die. So there are 6 possibilities. The probability of occurrence of 1 is equal to 1 by 6, 2 is equal to 1 by 6, and so on. So all are equal. Then if you use this property, then you get what it is. You take any event, then you will see that this is what happens. So this we are getting as a special case of our general definition. You understand what I said, or any doubt?
Yes, sir. And sir, for all the cases, the summation of all possibilities for all sample spaces equal to 1. The probability will be equal to 1.
Yeah, but there is a catch. That is a good question. There is a catch. The catch is, why did I not say that this is infinite? I said it is a finite sample space, because unless it is finite, we can. If we say it is also true for infinite, then this will be infinity, number of elements in S. So then 1 by infinity is not a valid number, right? And whenever we said this, so there is always the case that S is equal to union of all of this. So sum of the probabilities of this individual outcome should be equal to probability of S, which should be equal to 1, right? Now this is a very good question. Why? Okay, let me talk about a little more about this point. So the thing is, suppose I want to test what could be a probability of an individual. So let's say my sample space is like this: A1, A2, ... Now, suppose I just start defining this. Let's say A1, probability of A1 is equal to something. I define probability of A2 is equal to something, and ... I define using the n number or whatever it is, using let's say n because it is A1, A2, an, let's say, and it goes forever. Okay, A1, A2, an, and then it goes forever. So suppose somehow I define this probability of AI. But how do I know it is a valid definition of probability? If and only if satisfy the following fact, like 1 is equal to sum of P of AJ, j equal to 1 to infinity. If this property is satisfied, okay, if it is satisfied, then only that will be a valid definition of probability. So that means now here you see the beauty here, the use of calculus. This is an infinite series. So this series has to be convergent. Not only that, the limit has to be equal to 1. Then only this function, my function, which I'm introducing to define probability of an individual outcome. Okay, so that has to be a valid definition of probability. If and only if it satisfies this condition, whether it is finite or infinite, countable infinite, that is fine for a discrete sample space. But this problem has a this property has a problem when S is uncountable, because there is no notion of uncountable sum of numbers. So whenever I talk about this individual probability and this is equal to this, then I always said it is a discrete sample space. You see here, sample space is discrete because I cannot have a series where there are uncountably many numbers. I cannot have that. That's why probability for individual events in a continuous sample space has to be dealt with differently, not like this. What do I mean by this? Whenever S is uncountable, okay, then, so suppose this is S, which is, let's say this is like all the points here. Then, obviously, if you pick a single point, then probability of this point, let's say it is X, this event, corresponding to that this, it will always be 0 when S is uncountable. Because if it is non-zero, and then if it is non-zero for all X, means for all individual outcomes, then S has to be equal to union of all this X when X belongs to S. Then this will be 1 because we can take probability both sides, and then this has to be sum probability of X. But this sum is not a countable sum. It is an uncountable sum, and there is no concept like this, at least at your standard. So there is, and in an undergraduate standard, there is nothing like this. There is a concept, but at agriculture level, there is no concept like this. In fact, we always have to treat the probability of a single outcome in a continuous sample space is always 0. But here is a beautiful thing. That's why I'm spending a little bit time. Suppose I ask you, I give you the entire real line, 0. This is up to positive infinity, this is up to negative infinity. Now, if I ask you, you pick an arbitrary point from this. Now, what is the probability that this arbitrary point will be 2 or some x here? This will always be 0. Okay, we'll talk about this later on probably. Okay, but just keep this in mind that whenever we take sum, we have to talk about discrete sample space. I did not include continuous sample space. I included only discrete sample space here. Then it is the case. Because otherwise, for continuous sample space, probability of an individual outcome, it is always 0. And you will see later that I have to deal with this problem, like for the continuous sample space, in a different way. I have to talk about intervals, not a single point, but a continuous subset of the entire real line. Suppose the entire real line is the sample space. I cannot talk about probability of a single possible outcome because it will always be 0. It could be non-zero only when I can talk about an entire interval. So this we'll talk about later on when we'll introduce random variable. Then you'll see the difference that we'll deal with discrete sample space differently than the continuous sample space, or continuous sample space differently than discrete sample space. And this is the fundamental difference. But here is the beautiful, I mean, I can ask you a question which could be a food for thought. Now I am saying this probability of picking, let's say this is 2, is 0. But accidentally you can also pick 2. So probability in a real sense, this is not 0. Okay, accidentally you can pick 2, then it is not 0 once you pick that. So what is happening here? Okay, so that's why you have to deal with this problem in a different way. Or let's say I can give you another example. Suppose you consider the wall inside the room you are in right now. This is your wall, let's say, or a portion of this wall. Now there are infinitely many points here. Now I am asking you to throw your pen or any dot or any stone which is very, very small here, then it will hit some point. But what is the probability that it will hit an individual point? It is actually 0 because there are uncountably many points. But it will definitely hit some point for that particular point. The probability has to be non-zero. Then there is a conflict. Okay, so that's why, because this is a continuous domain, we have to deal with this problem in a different way. We'll talk about that later on. So this property is only valid when this is a discrete sample space. So then probability of any event is nothing but probability of the outcomes, individual outcomes, which is in that event. This is true only for discrete sample space. Okay, so this is the thing. Now, okay, what is said here is, okay, probability of complement of an event is nothing but 1 minus the probability of the event. You can prove it from the picture. Another interesting property of probability, this is again one more property, is that if you take any two events like this, so suppose this is your S, the sample space, this is an event A, and this is another event, which is, let's say, B. Okay, so A is totally contained inside B. So A is a subset of B, and B is a subset of A. S. Then you can always say probability of A is less equal to probability of B. This can again be proved using the three postulates or using the three axioms in my definition of probability. But let me not prove it right now. We can do it. This can also be a homework. Now here that I can give you a hint. A hint is, you see, A union B is nothing but A union B minus A. So then they are disjoint. So use that. So this is this part. This shaded part is this part is B minus A. This is set minus. So that means the elements which are in B but not in A. then you can prove that. Okay, that probability of, so A union B, or B can even be written as, so B, so this is the hint, B can be written as A union B minus A, and these two events are disjoint. They're mutually exclusive. Use that to prove this fact. Now, once this fact is true, then I can also say probability of A is always like between less equal to 1 and bigger equal to 0. Bigger equal to 0 is always there in my definition, but it is always less equal to 1. Why? The proof is very simple now, that A is subset of S. So probability from this property, when A is subset of B, okay? So from this property, it follows that probability of A has to be less equal to 1. That can easily be proved. Now, one more property. I mean, why I am talking about this property is because when you, so suppose you are solving a problem and you are asked to find probability of an event, and that event can be written as union or intersection or complement of some other events. And you probably know, or enough information is given in that problem, you know the probability of those events, whose sum or complement or union, okay, will give you the event or the desired event for which you want to calculate the probability. So then these properties are highly used. In fact, every day you can use this property. In fact, all your logic, you will see the way you solve a particular problem, or you have solved problems in 10+2 also, that can be put in this particular framework. If you can identify the events, then you will see you actually have used one of these properties, and that's how we got the result. Okay, and there can be events like this. Suppose I have some event here, A, and I have one more event here, B. Okay, so A is shadowing B. Okay, so this is entirely B, let's say. A is shadowing over B. So then I can talk about probability of A union B. This is again an event, and this can be computed as probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A intersection B. And you see this part, intersection part, A intersection B. So this part is A intersection B. This is again an event because A and B are events. And when you take A union B, this part, the intersection part, is counted twice because it is a part of A as well as it is a part of B. That's why you have to subtract it. I'm not telling you the proof. You can follow any book, or from the set theoretic and conditions or equalities, you can actually prove it. Okay. This is one thing, but I can also give you one more homework instead of. So this is homework. Instead of 2 events, I can also have 3 events. What is probability of A union B union C? In fact, I can have finally many events. I can have a general formula for that, which will be available in some book. You can see. So this is A, this is B, this is C. So can anybody guess what should be this one in terms of A, B, C and their intersections?
So we will add P of A plus P of B plus P of C, then minus P of A intersection B, B intersection C, and C intersection A, and then add again A intersection B intersection C.
Okay, yeah, you are correct. So you can just try to find a proof of it using some set theoretic operations. Or from the picture also you can find the summing equalities between the sets and you can find it out. One more interesting property of the probability is that suppose A is a subset of B. So that means I'm talking about this is B and this is somewhere A. Okay. Then probability of B minus A, this is set minus, meaning this part. This is again an event. So B minus A is nothing but probability of B minus probability of A. That can also be proved. Okay. Again, using some set theoretic equalities, you can prove that. This is very simple. Okay. So there are more properties, but these are some of the fundamental properties of the probability as a function. And as I said, when we introduced the definition of probability, we did not talk about all these properties because the definition will be heavy, very long, And not only that, these are all ad hoc properties. That means this information is redundant. These properties can all be proved using just these three simple properties. So it is enough to include only these three conditions in my definition of probability. Okay, that is enough. Then I can have so many properties which can be proved, properties of the probability as a function, using those three fundamental properties. Now I'll introduce one more notion. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let me start with a question. The question is, if I ask you, suppose you are doing departmental courses, like, I mean, the courses which are offered by your department. Okay, and suppose given a course, I give you a course from your department. That let's say the course is, let X be the course. Okay, X be the, X. I'll resolve X notation for random variable. So let A be the course. Okay, any course. Now I'm asking you, what is the probability that you'll score EX in this course? What is the probability? Now, what is the probability? Now, there is another interpretation of probability. Now, I will tell you. In practical life, when you talk about events, something, okay, probability is a score. Sometimes it is a measure of something. Measure of something, probability of some set, okay, or an event, or an individual outcome. It's a measure of something. Okay, measure of something. So, for example, your measure of your performance in the course could be, it is not always, but let's say it is, let us assume, because merit cannot be evaluated, by the way. So let us assume that it can be evaluated using your grade. Let us make that assumption first. And then let us say your performance, okay, in a particular course is the probability. Okay, so is some EX, A, B, whatever these things are. Now I am asking the question, what is the probability that you will get a grade EX? Okay. Now I ask you this question. Now, this is one question I'm asking you. This is my first question, question number one. Was that this is equal to EX? Okay, the P measures the grade here. Okay, it measures something, it just measures the grade. Okay. Now, next question is, I'm asking you, what is the product A provided I'm giving another information? Okay, what is this? When, or it is EX, let's say, same question, when some particular professor, let's say, some professor, let's say Professor K, okay, teaches the course or conduct the lectures, okay, conduct the lecture. Now you tell me whether these two probabilities will be same or not.
Sir, it might not be same.
It will not be same.
Might not be same. So, I mean, this is a practical question, because sometimes what happens is course also, the grade you're getting also depends on the professor who is teaching the course, because he or she decides what course you are supposed to get. So because of what? Because he or she gives you the question paper. Okay, some people may give what, because difficulty level of a question varies person to person. What I think as difficult or I think as easy can be different from another person, easy or difficult. So when I'm making a question and somebody else is making a question, okay, even if I do a uniform grading scale, let's say it is a uniform grading scheme, and you may get, if I make a question paper, you may score higher than another question paper because it was made by him or her, somebody else. Okay, so most of the cases you will see that it will differ. Okay, so that means whenever some additional information is given to you, your probability of an event can change. And this notion is captured by a notion of conditional probability. That means under a certain condition, what is your probability? Okay, so I'm giving you some extra information. Now, what can you say about the probability of the same event? Okay, so this notion is called conditional probability. Conditional probability. Okay, so so whenever as I said before, because today I introduced this probabilities concept of probability space, or I defined today what is probability space. So whenever I introduce a new concept, idea, okay, problem, there is an underlying probability space. So when I'm talking about conditional probability, I am always assuming that there is a random experiment and it has a corresponding sample space, sigma field, and a probability function. Now I am talking about conditional probability. Okay. So let us say, so I have this kind of a picture. This is S, this is B, and this is A. Okay. In your case, let's say this A is the course and B is a set of teachers. Okay. And you know who is teaching the course. So there is an overlap. This is the extra information because you know that some person K, some professor K is teaching the course. You know that. Now what is your probability of having A, like getting a score A, get a grade EX? So now if I give you this problem from your undergraduate notion, 10 plus 2 notion, that everything is equally likely, then how do you calculate it? Probability of A given that B has occurred. Okay, this will be then what? From your undergraduate notion, it will be number of, yeah.
A intersection B.
Yeah.
Upon B.
Yeah. So number of elements in this divided by number of elements in B. So this is from your 10 plus 2 notion. Now what I'm saying is that, so if you do, so basically this is, if I write it in my notation earlier, so it will be in notation this divided by NB, number of elements, and that can be said dividing by S, okay? Both for the denominator and numerator, will get probability of A intersection B by probability of B, okay? So this notion, this is true. This is a valid formula, okay? At 10 plus 2 level, 10 plus 2 level, when all outcomes are equally likely, okay? Now, whatever way I want to define conditional probability, it has to satisfy this, okay? So now, for my general definition of probability as a function, what I'm saying, I'm using that as a definition. I'm not proving it. You proved it. Now I'm using it as a definition for my general notion of probability. What I'm saying is, let A and B be events corresponding to some probability space or corresponding to some random experiment. Then probability of A given B is probability of A this and probability of this. See, I'm not proving anything here. It is not like, because my definition is a genetic difference. It is just a function. Okay. Now I'm not proving this one. I'm just defining this equality as my definition. And this, when this is valid when P of B is bigger than 0. And this is something called a cheating. And sometimes mathematicians do. But this teaching is okay. Why? Because whatever way I define does not matter. It has to follow this condition. So let me define this as a definition. Then my job will be whether this is a correct definition. My job will be just to check whether this will be a correct definition of or not. That means whether this definition, conditional probability, definition of conditional probability, is called conditional probability, whether this satisfies all the properties of probability or not. So when B is so I talked about the probability as a function. Here also I'm talking about conditional probability as a function. But all the events, whenever I want to test all these properties, all the properties have to be true when B has occurred. This additional information B is given to you. That means this is a checkpoint here. I need to check according to this definition whether this particular property is followed or not. A given B is bigger or equal to 0 for all events A or not. Second property I need to check probability of B, because B is the universal set here, B given B, because entire sample space is not anymore the sample space. any more universal set. Why? Because I already know that B has occurred. That means B, for me, B is a sample space. So, so something has occurred means B has occurred. I don't need to bother about complement of B. Okay. So B given B, whether this is 1 or not. And third thing is if A1, A2 dot dot dot, AK dot 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 are mutually exclusive events, then I have to show that probability of union of AK given B, okay, K equal to 1 to let's say infinity, given B is equal to sum of K equal to 1 to infinity, probability of AK given B or not. If this definition satisfies all this property, then I'll say this is a valid definition. And it is easy to check to just use this definition, and then you can easily check that this will all be satisfied. So this definition of conditional probability is a valid definition of conditional probability. Okay. Okay, today we don't have much time now. We're already running late. So let us stop here, and maybe next day we'll solve some problems using conditional probability. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. This homework to check all these are true, and hence.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it is a valid definition. Okay, by the way, so I will upload the lecture today if I can, meaning if there is no technical issues. And I will also paste this, what is called, I forgot. The YouTube link. Okay, I'll also give you the YouTube link. I'll paste the YouTube link here. So if you miss the lecture, again, you can watch it here. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Let me stop the record. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.